Apparently that's the clapper.
That is, because the rest of the stuff's back there in the luggage right now, Pete. Because
More
I'm
of a
at the
snapper.
American Airlines lounge. And couldn't get this one working. Couldn't get these working.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a bit of a challenge.
And I'm sure those guys are all pretty happy to see you in this Punisher t-shirt sitting in the American lounge, giving some sort of yeah, we see it. You can sit down. and I'm sure they're pretty fired up about it. Yeah. Look at that fucking Najarian.
Absolutely fired up.
Oh my God. That's that jackass. Anyway. All right, John, you ready for macro, man? Let's hit it.
Let's do it, Pete. CPI's slowest annual pace since May of 21. 10th consecutive deceleration. But, with food and energy, it's still up 5.5% year over year. So that's my macro minute, Pete.
I'm jumping right on your back on that one, John. It's all about CPI, in my opinion. And what we're seeing right now is extraordinary, quite honestly, is that some people were dancing about this. Let's not forget, what is the Fed's, what is their target again, John? Because I think it's 2%. And here we are, 5%. Well, 4.9. No need to argue about that one. We still got something going on, especially in the core.
Yep, the core is still pretty hot, Pete. Let's talk about fantastic futures now.
Fantastic futures.
Yes.
Yeah, even better up here, Pete.
The people love it behind you. He's been in broom closets. He's been in whatever. Go ahead, John.
I'm going to say 10-year down under 3.46, Pete. Mark Lepresti keeps telling me, Doc, they're shorting the heck out of these treasuries, which means treasuries down, rates up. But guess which way rates have been going, Pete?
Yeah.
That's the way rates have been going.
Yeah. Well, for my fantastic futures, I'm just going right back to Nat Gas just because I can't believe where it is, John, especially when you go back September last year, $9, right? I mean, it was screaming to the upside. It was 4.5 at the beginning of this year. It's been trapped in an area somewhere between, call it $2 and maybe $2.40, $2.50 for the last month and a half or so. So it's sitting there right on those lows. And it'll be interesting to see if there's ever any kind of a breakout for Nat Gas. We've seen crude jump, but we haven't seen Nat Gas really do the kind of recovery that we've seen sometimes, at least out of crude.
Yeah, well, I noticed, Pete, that we got rejected pretty hard at 230 per million British thermal unit and traded back down over the last several days to 218 or so. Yeah. So that's still an area we need to break through if you're a bull for Nat Gas and you think it's going higher. Mm-hmm. All right. What about this one, Pete? Airbnb. And the reason I loved it was, we had unusual activity. We talked about it with our inner circle and so forth. And look at how this one played out, Pete. The stock was 121.55 and it fell down below 110 today. After those earnings yesterday, which means that options went all the way to $10. So, and some did, depending on how much out of the money you were willing to play, you could have made more than a 3-to-1 risk reward, but that's a pretty big deal. And I think part of the big deal is, Pete, that, Airbnb, it's just a question of, guidance going forward, and it wasn't good.
You're exactly right, John, because actually the earnings, 18 cents, they're looking for 9 cents. Revenue was up 20%. You look at almost all those metrics presently, everything was fantastic. I mean, they're really moving to the upside. By the way, free cash flow up 32%. I mean, they really have been crushing it. Problem is, you go out for the guidance and suddenly you see this guidance start to slip. Now, it's not like they gave the worst guidance ever, though, John. I mean, they're still looking for growth, but the guidance was below. And with that, I think that was what everybody seems to be hanging on to. I actually think that this could be an opportunity. Now, I don't think it's an immediate opportunity, but I do think there's an opportunity there because when you look at where this thing is trading and the growth that they've been able to show, Yes, the guidance was bad, but you know what? This thing's gotten relatively cheap, and I kind of like it down here where it is. I'm not ready now, but I'm going to keep an eye over the next month because I think it's going to hang around down here for a little bit.
I would be right there with you, Pete. I think, if ways trade, selling out of things like that, fine. But I think over the next quarter, this one's going to be higher.
Mm-hmm.
That's my take. Let's take a look, Pete, at Rivian, because just like the one before, we had unusual activity, but these weren't on the puts. These were on calls. And so far, it's the only one that has actually put up solid numbers against a Tesla competitor, because Tesla crushed everybody by basically making 6 price cuts before they finally put in a price increase. And that really crushed those other guys. But boy, Rivian, doing a lot of things right, Pete. But I'll point out nonetheless, even though we had that nice trade in there, I'll point out that, man, 50,000 is what their target is for the year. Do you know about how many vehicles Musk makes a month? A lot, multiples of that.
Right. But they aren't Tesla, John. And I think when you really break this one down, you've got to look at a couple of things. First of all, they've got some great backers with Amazon and Ford. I think that's number one. The fact that they're able to give us a number like 50,000, they're still in the early stages. They are not Tesla. Tesla's been around for a little while. Elon Musk, Rivian's finally starting to make a bit of a move. The production numbers are pretty strong. And how about the price numbers, John? I mean, that's the one thing where they are kind of probably beating up on Tesla a little bit. They were able to raise their prices as opposed to the cuts that Elon was doing. They actually raised prices. Average selling cost, $83,000. So we're talking about a company that's moving pretty well, and with $12 billion in cash still on hand, and that was the number very close to where it was last quarter. This is a company that's not having to spend money right now at the rates that they were spending money, and they've got the balance sheet to be able to be somebody who might be able to at least kind of compete, let's just say, with the big boys like Tesla. Did we lose John?
Oh, there you go. Now I got you again, Pete. It's just been fighting with me all day. So sorry about that. All right, Pete, let's maybe dive into the next one, which is also unusual activity, because Upstart up 34%. And they had upside calls on this one. It's basically an AI lending platform, Pete. So again, AI, if you put anything with AI, all of a sudden people love it. But in the case of Upstart, they really think that Upstart will be able to significantly cut costs and still provide service. And so for that reason, the stock just made a monster move. And look at those calls that they were buying in this one, Pete. Just lots of unusual activity in it. And I like to feast on that because, the stock was so cheap. And then here it is with a 30, see on the screen, 31%, but it was as much as 36% on the highs.
Yeah, John, I'll tell you what, it's really impressive what they were able to do. And if you look at the quarter, they're losing less each time. Last quarter, they were losing less than expected. Again, losing less than expected by a lot. 47 cents, they were expected to lose about 82 cents. So when you look at this, the numbers that they're able to put up right now, how about this one as well, John, on top of everything else? Short interest. I'm looking at short interest of anywhere between 27 and 30%. So if people are wondering, why is this thing making the kind of move that it's made? Well, A, they're looking at what happened in terms of what they reported. But B, they're really looking at that short interest, and those shorts are getting absolutely squeezed out of town. It's unbelievable. As a matter of fact, 5 times average volume so far, 5 times average volume so far in this stock. And we're just at the midway point of the day. So a lot of turnover, a lot of squeezing going on right now. A lot of that, I think, has helped and given a bit of a boost, at least, to Upstart, at least for right now. John, if you're ready, are you ready to jump back in with some Twilio, or you want me to go there?
He's coming back.
He's coming back.
He's coming back in. He's trying, it's the little engine that could today, Pete. So
good to go, fellas.
Twilio. down 17%, tumbling after this communication software company put out disappointing revenue guidance and disappointing. Oh my gosh, the guy, basically the CEO was out there saying what a tough macro environment it is, Pete.
Well, we're freezing up again. Things are not going too well. I tell you what, I don't know if I blame O'Hare or if I blame American Airlines or who. But unfortunately, it looks like John slipped out again. John was talking about the revenue growth. Well, they had some growth. They crushed their earnings. But when you give a bad guidance to follow up on that, that's never a good thing. And that's exactly why we're seeing the stock getting beat up 15, 16%. That weak guidance, definitely the reason behind that. And growth is slowing. That's never a good thing when you have to report that. All right. Well, now we're going to jump to some of the sports section of this. And maybe if Jared wants to jump in, he can. But here's what we're going to start off with. How about Boston? Now, I made Boston the city, or we could even say, that part of the world from a sports standpoint, absolutely been crushing it, right? We talked about the Boston Bruins. Record-setting year, unbelievable year. Then we talked about the Celtics. The Celtics almost the entire year were the number one team in the NBA, but they slipped down as we got to the very end. And as they slipped down, Milwaukee took that spot. Well, Milwaukee's already gone bye-bye when it comes to the Miami Heat taking them out in the first round. And now you're looking at Boston, and Boston is really having a struggle right now. I mean, they really just can't seem to quite get over the hump. And it's something that I think when we look at it, could they make it? I mean, we're sitting there now in a position where they've got a win or they are out. And if that's the case, this is one more kind of misstep that we're seeing for Boston after having a tremendous season and a great season on the hoops court and on the rink. But the problem is they're not doing it in the postseason. And I think that's the problem we're seeing right now. I see you back, John. Any thoughts on the Celtics? I mean, right now, Philadelphia's got their number. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thanks, John. Appreciate that. I know you're having a lot of difficulties out there as far as connectivity and everything else, so we're just going to jump with it. I got one last real quick sports. You can see right there, Joe Kapp. Matter of fact, Jared, you probably don't even know what that name is, who he is or anything. You might be too young, right?
Yeah.
Joe Kapp was one of the great football players of all time. And I say that, and a lot of people will say, well, wait a minute now, Pete, you're going too far. Well, we're talking about a guy who he played for Cal Berkeley, the Golden Bears, went to a Rose Bowl, an unbelievable player. He then went up to the CFL. He's in the Hall of Fame for Canadian Football League. He then came back down because several other guys who'd gone up into Canada, a guy named Jim Finks and then Bud Grant from the Minnesota Vikings, they went up and plucked him back and brought him in, and he actually replaced the previous quarterback down here with the Vikings, a guy named Fran Tarkington. Well, very, very interesting pathway that he had. Everybody liked him. He had this great, unbelievable personality, and that personality turned him into an actor when he walked away from football. He actually did not only did he go to acting, then he came back to football and he coached University of California at Berkeley. Had a great team there, and anybody who remembers the 5 lateral, the play, they know what I'm talking about against Stanford. This is going all the way back. I believe it was 1982. And it was the 5 lateral play. He was the coach. He told the guys, here's the best part, Jared. He told the guys on the team, he goes, hey, look, I want you to grab that ball and take a knee, and we're going to throw a Hail Mary. The players all walked out onto the field. Many of them played for the greatest rugby team anywhere, Cal Berkeley. They always win national titles. They got out on the field after they told him, hey, look, take a knee. We're going to throw it and we're going to try to get something into the end zone. They said, no, we're not. Guys, we're going to play a little bit of rugby on them. So they did. They're running down to the left side of the field, and the right side of the field, the middle of the field, a lot of laterals back and forth. After the 5th one, a guy named Kevin Moen got through all of the band members and all of the Stanford players, and the chop was gone. They went into the end zone, and the only chop left was when he slammed it on the tuba player. and that was just phenomenal. One of the great endings to a game of all time. But he's a guy who he was in a lot of different movies. Shoot, he was in The Longest Yard, the original one with Burt Reynolds. Just a great guy, great friend, and unfortunately passed away just the other day, and he will be missed. But Joe Kapp, look him up, guys. If you don't know who he is, Jared, I include you in this. Look him up because he really was a remarkable person, and unfortunately had some Alzheimer's diagnosed a couple of years ago as well, but just lived a terrific life. And one of the few coaches that I'm aware of who used to actually at the end of games kind of say, hey, look, who needs a shot of tequila? Just a fun guy, man. Just a wonderful guy. Been a friend of the family for a long time. He'll be missed, but what a great human being, and what a great coach and player and everything, actor as well. Jared, really appreciate it. I know we had a lot of technical difficulties today. I know that John was having a tough time with his signal, but you did a great job managing it, talking through it, telling me what's going on and who's live and who's not. So I appreciate that, Jared, as always, and I look forward to it. And we'll see you tomorrow on the Rebels Edge.